Hey y'all, you're listening to the Legacy, Lyrics, and Life podcast. I'm your host, Shawna Wells, your legacy architect. Welcome. This is the podcast where we'll uncover what legacy really means and the impact we can all have when we are present. Let's get started. Today we're going to talk about how generational understanding can help you clarify your legacy. Now, first, let's start with what is a generational understanding? Well, generation is the people who have come before us. And many times we talk about these folks as our ancestors. You know, we see all over t-shirts, I walk with the power of 1,000 ancestors behind us. But what does that actually mean? The power of 1,000 ancestors. Well, today we're going to explore that. And I'm going to talk about 3 steps you can take to learn the gifts that come from your lineage or the generations that have come before us. Now, I know you all are excited about hearing these tips. Well, before I give you these tips, I want to share a little bit about the intimate and intricate nature of generational understanding. Choice by choice and day by day, we are impacted by our legacy. We are also impacted by the generations that came before us. There's so many aspects of our lives that really weave the fabric that we're using to build the quilt of our lives. And so as we get started, I want to give a couple of definitions and a few stories and a few ways of thinking about what does it really mean to link to your lineage, to the generations that have come before you. And in these illustrations, find for yourselves how you are connected to the past and how that can inform the legacies we're aiming to live and to leave. So as we get started, let me ask you something. In what order do you take a shower? Where do you start? Your face, your feet, your hair, some other place that we will not say on this podcast. You know, you probably don't know. And you probably do it in the same order every single time. That's called muscle memory, my friends. Muscle memory is the process in the brain that allows you to remember certain muscle skills without too much effort. That's why people say things like, oh, you know how to do this. It's like riding a bike. So today we're going to talk about the muscle memories of our lives. And it is deeply connected to these 3 steps that we're going to talk about to learn the gifts of your lineage, the generations who have come before you. Understanding these gifts can then help you move forward towards your legacy. So let us recall together. Maybe there's been a moment in your life where you weren't sure what to do. You were like, someone please give me the answer, the blueprint, the something. You weren't sure how you were going to make it through. Things seemed unclear. And then you move forward to the next moment, to the next threshold, and somehow you got to the other side. Now, the leaders I work with, when they get to the other side, they don't often stop and think about, how did I get to the other side? What gave me the grace, the faith, the hope, the skill, the knowledge to get to the other side when I really didn't know what to do? Well, when I ask them, I say, how'd you do it? How'd you get to the other side? Or maybe when you ask yourself, how'd I get to the other side? You say something like, it just happened. Or, well, something just clicked. I would say to you, it didn't just click. You used the lessons that you have been taught by your lineage that have been woven into your DNA to get to the other side. It's probably also how the chicken crossed the road. Get it? Mom jokes. So our trauma teaches us lessons. Our joy teaches us lessons. It gets passed down from generation to generation. In fact, since the start of humanity, we've had this skill set. It's woven into our brain of fight or flight. You've all heard of this before. Fight or flight is this instinct that we have to either go in and fight or to walk away. And that has helped us survive since the beginning of time. Well, if that can be passed down, our ability to engage with the situation or not, so can everything else. Let me prove it to you. You know, on a winter day, if I was getting a jacket, going to my closet, and I looked at my child and I said, go get your If you filled in that blank, you'd probably say jacket, because my child would use the context clues, the things that they have experienced in the past. Mom's putting her jacket on and it's cold outside. I need to do that. That's an experience that will shape their perception of what they do when it's cold outside for the rest of their lives. Now, let's take it to a habit, for example. If I have a habit of eating fast and I'm teaching a group of students in a school and I notice they all are eating fast, well, it's likely that they picked up on my need to move through life at speed. You see, the children are watching, but we're all watching each other, and our experiences inform what we do in the future. Let me give you one more. Sometimes we hear from our friends or our families, you smile just like fill in the blank, or you walk just like fill in the blank, or you sound just like fill in the blank. Sometimes musicians start to sound like each other. The Drake phenomenon. He changed music. Whether you agree Drake is brilliant or not, he changed music. That is a gift, a generational gift that he's passed on. So I want us now to think about our legacy being informed by our past. I've come across this lesson that our lives are influenced by someone else's lineage, but more profoundly, someday we will become someone else's lineage. And so what that means is it's on us to really think about the gifts that our lineage has given us. Some of those gifts we need, and some of those gifts, it's our turn to actually disrupt. So let me give you an example from my own life. I have been taught that hard work is the way to go. You put in hard work and you will win. The trade-off of hard work is that we don't often sit down or rest. And when I'm not sitting down and resting, I have a lack of creativity. I can't access it. And so I've decided that one of the things I actually want to disrupt for my lineage, this idea of hard work for hard work's sake, production for production's sake. And I want to teach the next generation, be it my children or the students that I got to walk alongside or the leaders that walk alongside them, that actually rest is part of the component for creativity. That taking a moment to walk outside is not lazy, it's necessary. It's an opportunity to see the world anew. So this whole idea of leaving lineages and building off of other people's lineages reminds me of Common, the rapper, debuts in the 90s. He works alongside greats like Talib Kweli and Erykah Badu. But he comes out with this song, Glory. Some of us may have heard it. He partners up with John Legend, and he's talking about the 1960s civil rights movement. And he says one line in the song Glory. He says, "No one can win the war individually. It takes the wisdom of the elders and the young people's energy." When I first heard that, it hit my soul. That came from something for Common, though. He said it like he believed it. And I think we can all learn something, not only from the line, but how Common has chosen to lead his life. I would say he is a conscious rapper, conscious of the partnerships that he makes, doing things like refusing deals with corporations that don't fully support Black lives and social justice. He uses the gifts of his lineage to inform his legacy. Common knows to partner with those who are making an impact from his mom. Dr. Hines, a beautiful educator and someone who says, the children are watching us. I taught Common to love. I also taught him about action. And when asked who taught her that, she said, my mom. And so here we have the example of lineage passing gift to the next generation. And in Common, we have a legacy. So let's talk about how you can access your lineage. Whether you have a strong relationship with your familial lineage or not, they have taught you some things. And we all have a societal lineage that we can learn from. And a societal lineage is really who is surrounding us, our teachers, what's happening in society, the artists that we listen to, the happenings of the world. All of those things are teaching us and informing our legacy. So I want to share 3 steps with you because it's like a big idea, right? It's like an enormous idea to think about what are the gifts of the lineage. So I'm going to pull on my own ancestors, and we're going to use a concept called Sankofa. And this concept called Sankofa is that you go back to the past. You really see the past and you pick up the gifts that your ancestors have left you and you pull them forward. So the first step is to really visualize the past. And when I work with leaders, I say, go back 3 generations. That's 60 years. and picture what's happening. Who are the people? And this could be people you know or people you don't know. What are they doing? What are they working towards? What's important to them? Really visualize it. I find that some folks draw it, some folks write it, some folks just see it, and that's enough. And as you look around, you may discover some things that you've never seen before. Those are gifts. Make note of them because it's likely that history or your lineage is giving you something that you need in present day. The second step is to examine the artifacts of the lives that came before you. And this is one that is actually really powerful because when I go back and I examine the artifacts of those who came before me, I think of my own grandmother. My grandmother, she was an amazing cook. In fact, her food brought people together, right? They came together to get grandmother's food. Collard greens, in my case, the pound cake. Food was a mechanism for bringing people around the table to have a conversation, be it good or bad. For me, when I want to bring people together, sometimes I make collard greens, but sometimes I decide I'm going to order some pizza off of Uber Eats. Two different relationships with food. The artifact there is Uber Eats. My grandmother didn't have that. And that shaped the trajectory of her life. She spent time in the kitchen. I'm not spending as much time in the kitchen. And so as we look at the artifacts of lives that came before us, we can start to understand the context of what was happening and different choices they may have made. My ability to order off of Uber gives me more time. My grandmother, making food for 7 kids, spends more time in the kitchen, using that as a nourishing act to bring her family together. The last step is my favorite. It's one that I actually picked up in high school. And that is to interview someone who's come before you and really sit down and look them in the eye and ask them questions you wouldn't otherwise ask them. You would be surprised at how meaningful that would be for you and for them. And I'll tell you about my experience in high school. The assignment was to interview someone 60 years older than you. I didn't know anybody 60 years older than me that lived close by, didn't live close to any family members. I had to travel to see my grandmother. So I interviewed my neighbor, and that bound us together. She came to my wedding. She made the cookies for my wedding. That bound us together for years because I learned about her. I learned about her running track. I learned about her being orphaned at a young age. I learned about her figuring out the world to become the very first president of the bank in the city that I lived in. And in learning about her, I learned about myself. I got a bonus for you. The last step is to build a statement, a sculpture, make a journal article, do something that captures what you learned as you did each of these steps. Because summarizing what you're learning from lineage is part of the beauty of discovering who you want to become. So I encourage you between now and the next time we drop an episode to take one of these steps, see what you learn, and really start to use them as we walk together and shape your legacy. Next time we talk, we're going to be thinking about how to use your legacy as a decision-making tool. So you're going to need the gifts from the past to help you figure that out. Thanks for joining today. Go out and live your legacy.